Hey guys, today we're talking about building welded loops in your sink tips. Most of today's commercial tips come with a welded loop, which would be the junction between your Skagit head and your sink tip. However, some folks like to have a welded loop where their leader material meets their sink tip, and today we're going to talk about how to do that. Before I show you how to do it though, one thing to note: today we're using Airflo Custom Cut Tips, which have a braided core, and that's very important because most of the sink tips out there have a monofilament core, and if you try to use a heat gun on them, more than likely you're going to damage that core and weaken the sink tip. So keep that in mind when you're building your sink tip loops, and here's how to do it. Alright, so we're going to start off with a piece of Airflo Custom Cut Sink Tip. This is T10. And you'll notice that I cut the end of this at an angle with my fly tying scissors, which will help you here in just a minute. We're going to take this piece of shrink tubing, slide our sink tip through it, and then what I do is double this over about the length of my shrink tube, which is just about 2.5 inches. Push that end through and start pushing this up the loop. Now, I like to leave a fairly large loop here because I like to be able to pass my whole fly and my leader through, so I want to make sure I accommodate for that. Don't make this too small. And you can see that the end of that sink tip, the cut end, is not all the way to the end. I've got a little bit of space there. So now I'm going to take my heat gun and I'm going to start heating this very carefully. I want that heat to hit it evenly, so I'm rotating as I do this. What helps is to every once in a while roll this on a table to kind of get even distribution of the material inside of the tube. You want to be careful not to melt too much of this because you don't want to damage the actual loop. Alright, so now I'm going to roll this on a table for a second. So now that I've got that tubing melted, I'm going to come from behind where the tubing isn't melted with my fly tying scissors, and I'm going to just separate that enough that I can get a hold of it and then start peeling it back. And if I've done this right, I should have about 1.5 inches of material and a pretty good sized loop there. A fly with lead eyes could be passed through, and that's a great way to make loops on the end of your sink tips, or if you need to replace a loop on the junction end. It's a very strong bond, and it will hold up to a lot of fish for you.